Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Real Time Coaching Lab, where we give you the best of what people are doing and we would like to share it with you too. So, we have a very special guest who's a friend, a client, and the thing that I love most about working with Nicole is you can give her a list like this and she's like, okay, got it. And she'll just go do it. Right. So it's like action implementation. So, one of the things that we wanted Nicole to share with everyone today is to take this mystery of your CRM and lead conversion and simplify it. We're also going to talk about her international team and delegation. And the interesting part is, before I kick it over to Nicole for her to introduce herself, when I first met Nicole several years ago, the idea of delegating anything and not doing it herself was literally like speaking another language. It's something that did not make sense. It's not something she wanted to do. So, as a coach, I'm incredibly proud of all the growth that she's had in this area. And she has one of the most dialed in systems of people that I've ever seen. Everything is planned, purposeful, and organized. So, Nicole, you want to tell them a little bit about yourself, your business, and where you're located?
Thanks, sure. So my name is Nicole Blanchard. I live in Boston and I serve mostly the greater Boston market, condos, single families, lots of rentals. Were in my past life. So developer representation was the backbone of my business. I've been in the industry for 15 years now, all full-time years. And my staff, so I have a staff of four and then one junior agent with me.
So let's go to the beginning, right? In terms of before we get into converting cold leads and everything else like that, when you started to organize your CRM, what were your thoughts and like what was the simple action that you did just to get started without overcomplicating everything?
It was a very overwhelming feat because when I started, it was over 22,000 contacts. As I said, I've been, in rental world for many years. So with the influx of lead traffic, and then agents, the CRM just became unmanageable. And in 2021, I really wanted to dial it in. And so I started by just deleting the oldest contacts who, according to like Compass's CRM, they weren't having any sort of engagement with me. They weren't answering any emails. And so from there, that was a huge flush. And then I got into like a second territory of people who I couldn't even identify who the heck they were. And that was a huge flush for me because if I can't even tell you who the heck they are, they're not a transaction, they weren't a purchase, a sale, a rental, or a landlord. At that point, just get rid of it and start concentrating on like the top percentage of people who I actually have had relationships with. And then from there, I began organizing into three groups: sphere A, sphere B, sphere C, so that I knew how to tailor communications toward each of those. If you think about it, if your CRM is 20,000 contacts, but you're only doing 100 transactions per year, you have to know where to begin with communication to those people who you're regularly in contact with. So that's how it got started. It's now manageable and under control, and it receives regular, CRM maintenance. And that's where we're at.
All right, two things. One, for everyone here, right? I always say like your CRM is like a big networking event in your house, and I don't think you'd want strangers roaming around your home. What was the process you used, and how'd you break it down just into, addition by subtraction, right? And simplification?
So if I think about this often, where if I was starting over again, what I would do is start by eliminating everything and then re-uploading. So if I were trying to focus on people who I wanted to maintain relationships with, that would be the people who I've had transactions with. I either represented the buyer, the seller, a landlord, or a renter. And I would also identify the people who I have like regular phone calls with, people who are regularly giving my name out, referring me to other business opportunities. And I would treat those as my sphere A, people who I make phone calls to very, very regularly, not necessarily email correspondence. Maybe it's text for them, but top of the tier. And then I would, yeah, keep going from there, eliminating people who I haven't had transactions with, but maybe correspondence with.
So what would you say to the agent that is, I will use this word, unnecessarily holding on to the idea that more contacts equals more business, where in my mind, more contacts equals more confusion?
I deleted it. So there are some people who are really afraid to delete contacts, and I get it. I've been there. It took me a while to get to the point where I'm just like, you know what? I don't feel good about calling this person. I don't feel good about emailing them. I think the likelihood of them getting back to me is very low. So I just deleted them out of my CRM. It's a tough pill to swallow, but I think it clears up your CRM and allows you to really focus on the people who actually value your attention and value your business. So it was easy for me. But alternatively, if somebody didn't want to just flush them, you can categorize them in your CRM with the appropriate either group or tag so that you're still emailing them, you're still sending them a quarterly newsletter, but people
Let's
hate
just stop.
newsletters
Let's not give people
and
bad
I've
advice,
really,
Nicole.
gotten away from them.
Yeah, let's not give bad advice.
Okay.
Just get rid of them, right? So think about it like this. Imagine a closet, right? And inside your closet, you have like a core wardrobe of things that you actually wear, excuse me, but you can't let go of any of the things that just don't serve you, that you've outgrown, that just might not be in season, or you don't even know how you got it, right? I'm not the only one I think that feels like I look at my closet, I'm like, how did this even get here? But if your closet, which mirrors your CRM, is like that, how are you ever going to find the things that you actually want to find, right? It's very challenging. So as you go through your CRM, right, and clean it out, I'll share this bit of advice to you. I call it the 15-second rule. If you have no idea who this person is within 15 seconds, just archive it, right? Just swipe, right? And it could be a math equation too, right? Like I can do 15 contacts a day, 20 contacts a day. I can do this for 20 minutes. You can do it from your car, right, Nicole?
Hmm.
All right, so now that you have the CRM, let's talk about the thing that a lot of people wonder, like, how do you convert cold leads, right? So, the interesting part about rental agents is like this whole lead conversion process, whether it's a Zillow client or another online lead, a lead from your listing, because we talked about this on our last coaching call, right? Somebody that wants to see a property is going there to see a property. They're interested in a tour of that one specific home. They're not raising their hand and say, I want an agent. I want your emails. I want to be on your newsletter. Agents think, wow, here's a person and they're a lead, right? Like I have an opportunity. They want an agent. So how do you go through that process of converting that person that wants to see a property into actual business?
So for me, being able to schedule the appointment first and then have a more worthwhile conversation when you're actually like in front of them and determining if they're within a certain period of time going to transact or if they're just starting their process and starting to look. That's sort of where we begin the opportunity to convert them, but it's a lot more screening that's required of them to determine if they've even spoken to a mortgage lender. Do they know what that is? Do they know why it's important to have a buyer's agent? So that's where it starts.
So what if this is very timely, right? As we've talked about this, I think it was last week. What is your biggest lesson that you've learned about qualifying people to know if they're actually somebody worth your time?
So we talked about this and I loved what you said. And this is what caused me to really go back through and rescreen a lot of the buyers that I did have in a pipeline was, do they have a definitive moment in their life that they need to move by? Do they have a lease that's ending? Are they relocating here for a new job? Is there something, or is there like a life event that is causing them to start thinking about purchasing or selling their property? And if you don't have one of those two things, it becomes really hard to create like a sense of urgency with their runway.
Yeah, and like it also becomes like, what is the negative impact on a person working with people like that?
It's incredibly draining. sorry, incredibly draining. The amount of time spent with, buyers who are casually looking and haven't really identified like what their timeline is to be purchasing a property and closing on it, it's draining. I felt like in Q1 I had a great pipeline of potential buyers that ultimately at the end of Q1 we're still looking, and I think for a good percentage of them, I felt as though the options that had come up in Q1 were representative of what they described they wanted and didn't understand why they weren't pulling triggers.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing, right, whether it's cold lead, it's a referral, is if you hear these words, if this happens, then I will buy a home, run, right? Like literally
Hmm.
run.
Yep.
If I find the right property, if I find the right deal, if, like it is literally mentally draining on people, right? Because eventually, if you do this enough, you're going to start thinking, well, what's wrong with me that I can't find them a house, right? Well, it's because we didn't listen well enough in the beginning to understand people will speak their truth. You just have to be open to hearing it, right? And, real estate, like in many things, people see what they want to see, hear what they want to hear based on what they need. So they start fitting square pegs into a round hole. So knowing what you now know today, right? A cold lead comes across. What's your path of this is a good client I should work with, or this is somebody I should just swipe left on?
So this is actually what I wanted to really like nail down with you, because right now, from where we were with Q1 versus today, it's having a more in-depth conversation beyond Med C to really understand their timeline, like what is happening in their life that would cause them to want to purchase a home, sell the home. And some of these cold leads, it's hard to begin like that rapport with them so that you can really like dig in, at least for me. So that's why we're here.
All right, so cool. We'll do some live coaching. You good with that?
Yeah.
Nicole? All right, good. She's like, oh, I wasn't prepared for this. That's the best part about this. This show is filled with lots of surprises. So let's think about this, right? So MED-C stands for motivations, expectations, disappointments, and concerns for anyone who hasn't heard it before, right? So if I'm asking you and I'm saying moving is probably one of the least enjoyable things in the world, and it's probably a big inconvenience, what makes this the right time to make a move, right? So provide me an answer. And provide me an answer of somebody who's like iffy and you're not really sure about.
So I've been renting for a few years, and I thought that it would just be a better move to start building my own equity versus giving it to my landlord.
Got it. So you're looking at building your own equity. Outside of building your own equity, what are you most excited about happening directly as a result of purchasing your first home?
This is where people get tripped up, and they usually say something to the effect of, "Oh, well, that's a really good question. I haven't thought about that." I mean, I guess I'm excited to make it my own, or I'm excited to be there for a few years.
So this is a place, right? So then before you even go to expectations, right? As soon as somebody says that, that's like a trigger, right? It's like a trigger that says, we have to go into that. And you're going to say, look, what I've found in my professional experiences, really helping people identify this from the beginning is the most supportive thing we could do because we want to understand how you can find your ideal, not only home, but lifestyle in the community you want to live in, right? So, like, what are the things that you love most about your apartment? Like, what about the location that you like? Like, are those similar things you want in a home? And I get right into that analysis, right? And then after they've painted that entire picture, you're going to say, all right, so you want to build your own. So what I hear you're saying, Nicole, is you want to build your own equity, the things you're most excited about happening a result of, right? And then I would ask somebody, is there a date that you're committed to having this happen for you?
Mm. Yeah, I like that.
Right. And then if they're like, well, like if I find the right deal and everything else like that, you're going to say, great. So what's your plan B if that does not happen before your lease expires?
Yeah.
Then they're going to tell you, right? And then you're going to say, Look, I'm going to share something with you that I want you to think about, Nicole, right? I'm not expecting an answer, nor do you have to provide me an answer, but it's something that you should just be aware of. Would it be okay if I shared that with you?
Of course.
I'm going to say, look, we've worked with over 1,000 different people and experiences in buying and selling a home. And a lot of times, what we find is life timing and goals can, in most cases, supersede like market interest rate and everything else. And I have some tenants that I've worked with that have the same dream every year. And every year they're chasing the ball because the opportunity is not right, the market's not right. And timing that market, you could be Warren Buffett and you might not figure it out, right? So you really want to think about how important, and then you want to go back to all the things that they're excited about are for you, right? And there might be a trade-off in a higher monthly payment, or it might not be the perfect place, but you can get 10 out of the 15 things that you want. And you want to understand that, like, if you potentially rent for all these years, it could cost you this much money, or you could build equity. You give the financial side and say, hey, why don't you think this over? And then let's have another follow-up conversation and build out a customized plan that fits your goals.
Hmm.
Just have to
That
plant the
makes
seed,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
So based on that, what questions would you have? And
If
where
I
do you
was
think
the buyer,
it goes back? Yeah, be the buyer. Don't make this easy for me.
I think, hmm, no, I'm not sure.
You
Yeah,
want to
jump
know
in
why you're
here.
not sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because everything I said gave you a choice and opportunity to pick which path was best for you, and I just gave you information.
Hmm.
I didn't tell you what you should do. I didn't act like I was your advocate. I didn't act like I was your parent. I didn't act like I was lecturing you. I didn't act like I have your best interest at heart. You know, all those buzzwords, which really don't make any sense. It's a
Yeah.
different process, right? But it also shows that you're not attached to the outcome.
Hmm.
Because you want one of two things to happen. The first is you want them to think, right? Like think about it differently. But I never thought about all this stuff. So just by getting them to think about this and like prompting them to talk about this, you've added value of somebody who's not just trying to be a salesperson, right? The second part is you want them to self-identify if they're a good buyer or not.
I like that because then from their perspective, they know whether or not they're wasting people's time. And there's a level of guilt, I think, associated with that if they've come to the terms of, either what I want isn't in line with my expectations of the market, it's going to cost too much, I don't have the down payment, and I'm making you show me all of these homes for no reason when ultimately I don't even know what I want.
Well, actually, they don't. I hate to say this, they don't care about the guilt for you. The common perception is it's like when somebody goes on Zillow, they think that people are real estate agents are literally just sitting around all day waiting in their office for. I see Kristen nodding her head. Just waiting for somebody to call you. Yeah, can I see this house in 45 minutes? Not like you're self-employed. There's a cost to your time and gas and energy. They just sit there and think you're waiting around all day, right? Like, why would you have anything else to do? My name is Chirag. I want to see 123 Main Street in Westport. Shree, can you bring me there in the next like 45 minutes? I'm in the area. Like what?
Yeah.
What you want them to realize it's a waste of their time, right? So you flip it, right? You can say, Nicole, I don't want you to invest into something so much time when your time is really valuable that in the end isn't what you really want or something that can't happen.
Hmm. So a new sort of like plan of attack or a sequence of events that I'm trying to nudge to happen with like a cold lead or like a Zillow lead or something is you get them on the phone, you book the appointment. At some point, ideally before the appointment, especially if it's like more than 24 hours, you're going through this on the phone a little bit. Or do you think that it's better to just meet them and then go through this in person?
Listen, here's the thing. If you're representing a property, whether it be you're buying the lead or not, like it's something you have to do, right?
Hmm.
And then
Of
when you
course.
get to the home, right, you ask them a different set of questions, right? You can say, hey, your time is really valuable. What specifically interested you the most about this home? And then they're going to tell you,
Mhm.
and now this is going to be counterintuitive to most people. You know how you start a conversation, you kind of just do the same tour every single time? I would go straight to whatever the heck they were talking about. Backyard, great. Let's go to the backyard. As soon as I get to the backyard, like, so you said this was like, I'm walking and I'd say, okay, the backyard is one of the things that really got you excited. I wouldn't ask any other question besides this. I would say, based on your vision of living in a home and your lifestyle, what kinds of experiences would you want to see yourself or do you see yourself having in a yard like this? And then they start really getting into it. Like, have you taken the time to think about like what this like in summer and holidays and like the flow of how people are, and the conversation all of a sudden shifts from the standard tour to this person just wants me to sign a contract with them and sell me a house to I'm talking about all the things that are most exciting to me, right? Like if you asked me a question about what was the most important thing in a house for me, I tell you two things: the master suite, right? Like that includes closet space, bathroom size, ceilings, right? And the backyard. If you got me talking about the backyard, you'd get 10, 20, 30 minutes of my attention because I would share my dream.
Mhm.
But those feelings of trust and rapport are created through interactions and engagements
Mhm.
because now they're tying what you want them to do to something they really want in their life.
I feel like I need to go through a complete like re-onboarding of the buyers who I thought in like Q1 were going to be serious and worthwhile, and take them like through all of this all over again.
Yeah. Hit yes in the chat if you have a buyer that you think you might need to have another conversation with. Let's see how many people are honest. And we know there's some people that won't write anything anyway.
Mm.
Oh, here they come. After like the first 10, we see them coming in. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, hold on. Somebody had a comment here. Only because I was not prepared. Yeah, like look, this is the whole point of these sessions is like to learn things through. Sometimes people share what they're doing. Other people, times we do live coaching. That's the cool thing about the ebbs and flows of this. But look, all of us, right, Nicole, need to pre-screen our buyers before we bring them out. But if we're not clear
Yep.
in our, what's that?
No, I completely agree.
So when you think about clarity now, right? Like how clear are you on who's the right buyer and who's the wrong buyer?
Well, after we made that list, very
What
clear.
list? Can you explain the list to everybody? Because I think it's a worthwhile list that everybody makes.
Yep. So it's a three-column spreadsheet that determines the adjectives of a ready, willing, and able buyer who values not only my time, their time, but has a definitive point in their life that will create this transaction to happen. And then qualities of the bad buyer, and then qualities of like the maybe, but needs to be, screened out further.
Yeah, so it's like the first thing in, these are buyers I absolutely love, right? People that have a defined time frame, people that want professional advice, people that could listen and follow directions, people that work within my communication plan, right? And then like the people I should run away from, right? People that think I'm
Mhm.
available 24 hours, people that try to cut my commission, people that will only move if they find the right opportunity, right? Like there's a whole list of stuff that you can come up with. And for everyone here, this should be an evolving list, right? Because when you measure something, your brain is prompted to think about it differently, right? So if Nicole looked at this list every time before she had a conversation, Nicole, do you think you'd approach a conversation differently or know what to listen for?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So has there been an instance from the time we've had this conversation that there was somebody that you spoke with that you might have worked with and now you're just like, nope, sorry.
Yes. So following the conversation that you and I had, after I made the list, and basically two of the buyers were like major red flags as a result, I sent them a text because phone calls are not their, reliable form of communication, which angers me. But sent them a text letting them know that there seems to be like some misalignment in not only our communication, but our expectations of the process. And within seconds, one of them immediately got back and said, I think that you're spot on, and I think I really need to spend some more time reflecting on what it is that I want. And that was the buyer who had been looking for about 5 months, and I felt as though several options came up that she should have moved forward on. But after she said, I'm gonna run my own comps too, after I had sent her like a very in-depth, the one that she was interested in would sell for. That was a huge red flag for me, because I'm like, what are you doing? That doesn't make any sense to me. You're running your own comps. So that was an immediate flush and got her off the board. And I did feel like that was a time suck, because I was sending her about two or three curated off-market listings that were perfect for her at least a week.
Yep. It's relieving. It gives you time back. It gives you
Hmm.
energy back. It gives your focus back. And by the way, you're more professional, right? So you had a question, do we have a list? No, everyone's list is their own, right? Like literally think about your best clients, like those people that give you energy. Because look, I always find that there's this client, right, Nicole, that you come along with that just wants to listen to everything you say, has like an incredible family or story, and you find them a home. It's like the most rewarding feeling. And you're like, oh my God, this is why I do this every day. Forget all these other people, right? But the goal is find more of those people.
Yes.
All right, so we have 3 minutes left. So this is what I want to try for the last 3 minutes. This will be a new thing we do. 3 minute flash. In the next 3 minutes, rattle off the best business advice that you can give to these group of people that you wish somebody told you sooner.
The best business advice would start with having a management software, even if you're an individual agent. Um, I use Slack personally, and it helps streamline not only correspondence between me and my staff members, my junior agent, but also it cleans up my email so much. The second bit of advice would be treat your Gmail as if it's a personal assistant by learning how to set up filters, labels, and forwards. Which brings me to the third piece, which is if you're handling a significant amount of inbound lead traffic, whether it's for your listings, rentals, or sales, set up a sub email. So mine is hello@compass.com, which my assistant is in charge of. I have access to, and I'll, dabble in it maybe once a day, but it drags the emails that are in my main email out so that my assistant can respond to them with like a templated response that is received timely, quickly, and accurately. And I would say those are my like big three.
That's right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining, Nicole. This was incredibly helpful. Nicole, drop your email in here if people want to reach out to you, if they have a referral in the Boston area. I sent Nicole referrals because she's so OCD organized. Like I know if I send somebody here a client, she'll do a really good job. So outside of that, look, our ask is if you're getting value from these sessions and the notes and the follow-up things, my request is invite a friend, right? The greatest thing that you could do is help somebody else grow and share something that you're using that's working with other people. We know the community here at Compass is like infectious in the way that we all share great things. So let's keep growing this community together. So that is my ask. And Nicole, thank you again for being here with everybody. Love my heart. I love you all. You'll get a recap, you'll get notes, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye.